I looked over at the 2-story red barn I had built not long after buying Wonderland. I would never forget the day I'd brought Abby here, gotten down on my knee, and asked her to marry me. We were both 18. I had dreams for the tree farm, and she had dreams for her family's flower farm that was right in the outskirts of Boggy Creek. Abby had decided to take online classes to earn a business degree so she could stay and help her folks run and manage the farm. Plus, she told me she wanted to stay in town after we'd gotten engaged. "You ever hear from her, Bishop?" Trent's question pulled me from my thoughts, and I looked over at him. I smiled. "How in the hell did you know I was thinking about Abby?" Trent shrugged. "Because I know that look. Saw it in the mirror for 15 years until I finally found someone who brought life back into my eyes." Sighing, I shook my head. "Nah, she comes into town to see her folks, but she doesn't ever come out here or call me. I haven't seen her since the divorce. The last time I'd spoken to Abby on the phone was a few days before we were set to meet in front of the judge. I was, of course, still pissed at her. I had refused to take her calls. Wouldn't even talk to her the day of the court hearing. Those calls had haunted me ever since. If I had taken them or even talked to her that day, would it have made a difference?" Trent shook his head. "Don't seem right. You were like 2 peas in a pod. Everyone thought you were the perfect couple." I let out a bitter laugh. "Including me. Guess she wasn't as serious when she said 'till death do us part.'" Trent looked at me and nodded. Clearing my throat, I asked, "So, you'll let me know about the truck and all?" "I sure will. We'll talk soon." Trent reached his hand out and shook mine. As he headed back to his truck, he called over his shoulder, "Keep an eye out. They say a storm is moving in." Lifting my hand, I waved at Trent and then headed into my 2-story log cabin. I stopped and turned back to look over the acres of Christmas trees. Closing my eyes, I thought back to 11 years ago today, when Abby and I stood not far from this spot and said our vows. God, she was so beautiful. Her brown hair had been swept up in some fancy style, with soft curls hanging down to frame her face. Those hazel eyes had been filled with nothing but happiness.
"Abby!" Arabella shouted as she wrapped us both in her arms. We stood there for a few moments, just hugging one another, before Greer stepped away and released me. "Oh my God, you're here! Wait, when did you get into town?" I let out a strangled laugh. "I got in yesterday. I was the one who sent you the note, Arabella. Sorry, I didn't really want anyone to know I was back in town. Not yet." My voice trailed off, and I looked at Greer. "I'm sorry. I thought you'd be down in the bookstore, but I saw Arabella coming up through the private entrance, so I just followed her up. I still have a key, so I let myself in." It was then I noticed someone else sitting behind Greer and Arabella. I froze for a moment and then said, "Oh, I didn't know you had company." Greer reached for the woman's hand. "Abby, let me introduce you to Candace Reynolds. Candace, this is Abby Boyer." I gave Candace a warm smile. She was stunningly beautiful. Golden brown skin and warm chocolate eyes that held so much kindness. I instantly wanted to get to know her. Her black curly hair was pulled up, and she returned my smile with one of her own as she replied, "It's a pleasure to meet you, Abby." "Greer told me a lot about you," I said. "I mean, when I was still living here. I've been gone for a couple of years. I think you had just moved to Boggy Creek when I, left." Suddenly, Candace's eyes went wide. Her mouth dropped open, and she looked at Greer, then back at me. "Wait, Abby Boyer? As in Bishop's ex-wife, Abby?" With a tight grin, I replied, "That would be me." Arabella reached for my hands and squeezed them. "Are you here to visit your folks?" I chewed nervously on my lip as I watched Greer and Candace exchange a worried look. Then I focused on Arabella. "No, I've moved back to Boggy Creek. For good."
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.